Trump is flying to Beijing next month, expecting a hug. China just spent 61 days making sure he arrives weaker than he's ever been. And the most dangerous part? Trump may not even know it yet. If you follow global power shifts daily, hit subscribe right now, because what we're about to walk through changes everything you think you know about the Iran war. Here is what actually happened. Between February 28th and today, while every American camera was pointed at the Strait of Hormuz, China executed a 61-day strategic operation across 4 simultaneous theaters: the Middle East, the Pacific, the Korean Peninsula, and the global energy market. And not one of those moves made the front page. Start with Iran. Chinese firms with direct links to the People's Liberation Army sold geospatial intelligence on the positions and movements of American troops, ships, and aircraft to Iran, while the war was active, while American pilots were flying. China also shipped sodium perchlorate, the rocket fuel precursor used in solid propellant missiles, on sanctioned tankers to Iranian ports. Trump himself called the intercepted cargo a gift from China. And this week, his administration sanctioned Chinese refineries for buying Iranian oil. The same week, he confirmed he is flying to Beijing for a summit. The same president, the same month. Let that land. And if you think that's the whole story, you're only at the surface. Because what China did next is what no American outlet has fully connected yet. Share this before the Beijing summit happens, because once Trump lands, the leverage window closes. Now go to the Pacific. While American carriers repositioned into the Persian Gulf, China's aircraft carrier Liaoning transited the Taiwan Strait and deployed into the South China Sea. Simultaneously, the PLA Eastern Theater Command dispatched the 133rd Naval Task Group through the Miyako Channel into the Western Pacific. 2 Chinese naval elements, 2 separate bodies of water, at the same moment. Military analysts have a term for what that formation rehearses: envelopment. China was practicing how to surround American and Filipino forces in the Philippines, while those forces were conducting their largest joint exercise of the year, Balikatan 2026, which this year included unprecedented Japanese participation. The Pentagon, at the same moment, confirmed it had pulled air and missile defense systems from Asian theaters to sustain the Iran campaign. Every Patriot battery redeployed to the Middle East is a Patriot battery not defending Seoul. Every carrier in the Persian Gulf is a carrier not in the South China Sea. Every intelligence asset tracking Iranian force movements is an asset not watching PLA naval deployments around Taiwan. China did not start the Iran war, but China has spent 61 days making sure its consequences land hardest in the theaters where American deterrence matters most. And then came the move that received almost zero coverage in any American outlet. On April 9th and 10th, China's Foreign Minister Wang flew to Pyongyang, his first visit to North Korea in more than 6 years. 6 years. During the pandemic, North Korea sealed its borders, and China's influence in Pyongyang faded. Moscow moved in. Beijing's leverage over Kim Jong-un weakened. And then, in early 2026, rail and air links between China and North Korea quietly resumed. Then Wang Yi went to Pyongyang in April. Then Trump is scheduled to go to Beijing in May. That sequencing is not a coincidence. In 2018, Kim Jong-un traveled to Beijing before his first meeting with Trump in Singapore to coordinate positions. China is doing the same thing now, in reverse, reestablishing itself as the essential gatekeeper of North Korean diplomacy before Trump arrives. So that any Trump-Kim engagement Trump has repeatedly signaled he wants as a second-term legacy achievement runs through Beijing's pre-positioned influence rather than around it. Now hold all 3 threads at once: Iran, Taiwan, North Korea. Because China is not running 3 separate policies. Every analyst who has assessed the full 61-day picture has reached the same conclusion. These are one integrated strategy. The objective is to demonstrate to every government watching that the United States cannot simultaneously manage a Middle East war, deter China in the Pacific, contain North Korea, and sustain alliance commitments in Europe. The Iran war is not only a conflict about nuclear weapons. It is the stress test of American strategic capacity that China designed its entire regional positioning to exploit. And here is where Taiwan's economic reality collides with its political dysfunction in a way that should terrify every person reading this. Taiwan's economy grew 8.7% in 2025 and is projected to grow 7.7% in 2026, driven entirely by its position as the producer of the world's most advanced semiconductors. Without Taiwan's chips, the global AI economy does not function. Without Taiwan's chips, every major AI investment made in the last 3 years loses its foundation. Taiwan's chips underpin the technological future of the entire planet. And Taiwan's political parties cannot agree on a defense budget to protect them. While China rehearses envelopment scenarios around the island, while American carriers that would respond to a Taiwan contingency sit in the Persian Gulf watching 6 tankers cross Hormuz per day. This is the backdrop of the Trump-Xi summit. Not a clean slate, not a stable bilateral relationship being carefully managed. A global energy shock driven by a war China helped sustain. A fracturing international order China is actively reshaping. And a summit scheduled between a president who spent 61 days managing a war in the Middle East and a president who spent those same 61 days improving China's strategic position on every front that matters. The specific agenda items both sides have signaled make the gap visible. U.S. Trade Representative Greer has indicated Trump will seek stability rather than a reset. Recent U.S.-China talks in Paris touched on rare earth supply and a proposed joint board of trade, a modest procedural outcome covering Taiwan, Middle East security, and chip export controls. The analysts who have reviewed the full picture are uniform. No substantive agreement is likely on any of these. Because these are precisely the 3 areas where China's 61-day strategy produced its most significant gains. China is not going to Beijing to discuss rare earth supply chains. China is going to Beijing having just spent 2 months improving its position on Taiwan, on the Korean Peninsula, on Iranian nuclear negotiations, and on the global energy architecture. To meet a president who spent those same 2 months managing a war, and who expects a big, fat hug. Trump called China's intercepted missile cargo a gift. He sanctioned Chinese refineries this week. He is flying to Beijing next month. China armed the war. China rehearsed Taiwan envelopment. China went to Pyongyang. China helped end the war China was helping Iran fight. And every major strategic analyst who has assessed the full 61-day picture agrees on one conclusion that no official American statement has acknowledged. The single largest strategic beneficiary of the Iran war is the country Trump is flying to meet for that hug. The question the summit will not publicly answer, but that every serious analyst is already asking, is this: what does Trump know about China's role in the Iran war? And what leverage does he actually have left to use in that room in Beijing? Because the sanctioned refineries, the rocket fuel on sanctioned tankers, the PLA-linked intelligence sold on American troop positions, the key Chinese role in the ceasefire, all of it is documented. Some of it Trump has acknowledged publicly. None of it has been resolved. All of it will be in the room. We track this daily. Every verified development, every verified source, every shift in the strategic picture, updated every day. Drop your most important question below. What do you think Trump actually knows walking into that room? The sharpest analysis gets featured. 3 questions that no official statement has answered. If China's 61-day strategy produced simultaneous geopolitical gains across the Middle East, the Pacific, and the Korean Peninsula, what specific demand does Trump bring to Beijing that is sufficient leverage to reverse any of them? If American military posture in the Pacific has been measurably weakened by 61 days of Iran war deployments, and China is using that window to normalize military operations inside Taiwan's defensive perimeter, how much of the deterrence that prevented a Taiwan contingency before February 28th has already been consumed? And if China arrives at the Beijing summit, having pre-positioned itself as the essential intermediary for any Trump-Kim engagement, what does Beijing want on Taiwan, on chips, and on the Iran war, in exchange for facilitating the North Korea diplomatic process that both Trump and Kim have said they want? If you've read this far, you already know this is not a channel that cuts corners. Subscribe, because the Beijing summit is weeks away, and what happens in that room will shape the next decade.